Hey, welcome investors to the 40 Finance channel. My name's Jeff Beers. Today I want to take another look at Square. It's been a few months since I last did a Square video. And to be honest with you, I'm coming around on this stock from a more bullish perspective. In the past, I've been a bear on Square stock, mostly because of its valuation. But a lot of things have changed here in the latter part of 2021. Obviously, we have the vaccine news that's come out. We've also seen a jump in Bitcoin prices, and we've had the announcement of PayPal, similar to Square, using the Cash App and Venmo on the PayPal side to really bring Bitcoin to the front of the line as far as an investment idea. So with all the things that have changed here in just the past, 60, 90 days, I think I'm changing my case on Square to an extent to a more bullish view. Reminder as always that my stock picks and projections, they're just my opinion for your entertainment. Please make sure you do your own research and due diligence before investing in any stock. And of course, if you like stock market analysis and personal finance videos, please subscribe to the 40 Finance channel. Give this video a like. Thank you to everyone who has supported the channel so far. All right, so here's a screenshot of my last Square feature, and that was August 7th. And we see, should Square investors worry? And the concept here was pretty simple, and that was that Square Small Merchant Payment Network was struggling, obviously, with small businesses being closed during the pandemic. And they got a lot of revenue through the Bitcoin investing arm of their Cash App. And what was weird about it was that it wasn't actually all revenue because they had to purchase Bitcoin in order to allow their investors to invest in Bitcoin. So what you had was a really convoluted, Q3 for Square. I'm always a little leery of Jack Dorsey, to be honest with you, and I just have not been feeling good about the business foundation of Square for several months now. But here we are in December, and I'm starting to see some contradictions in my own investment philosophy, and I'm going to share those with you here today. All right, so here was the kind of the rationale back in August of saying, Square's overpriced, I wouldn't get in, blah, 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 blah. Here are the points that I laid out when the stock was at $138. Today we're trading in the neighborhood of $200, a little bit over that. But this is what I was going for. I mentioned the Bitcoin transactions bailed out transaction revenue in a big way for Square. And not only did they bail them out in a big way, but the profit margin on those transactions was pretty slim when you factor in how much of the transaction was actually the Bitcoin asset and how much of it was, the trading fee. Point number 2, Cash App is growing market share, but Bitcoin clouds performance. I stand by this. Back in Q3, so much of Cash App's money was really being made on investment transactions. So while the dollar number was big, the actual profit from it was not nearly as big as the headline would insinuate. 3 there, Cash App benefited from direct stimulus deposits, which was great. Square turned into a mini bank, so to speak. And the problem with that, though, is it's a one-time event, right? Now, we may get another stimulus. Nobody knows for sure. But the bottom line is it's certainly not going to happen every year. So anytime you benefit from a one-time event on any stock across any industry, you always have to think ahead to the next year on the comp cycle for that. So that was a concern for me. And lastly, merchant hardware biz growth will struggle until vaccine. Again, this is back in August. We have a vaccine now, so some of that world is less murky, if you will. And just to be fair and transparent, my bottom line back on August 7th, hold if you own. I personally would pass on buying new positions unless under 120. That obviously, depending on what your other opportunities were, that turned out to be a missed opportunity because the price today is at or above $200. So wrong call for sure on that one for me. You have to keep in mind, like on the minor bright side of missing an $80+ gain, I am very bullish on PayPal, as many of you know. So I made plenty of money buying PayPal since August 7th. At its low price. I was still investing in other things, so it's not really like, for me personally, I didn't miss $80 because I didn't not invest. I missed an $80 run on Square, but I was investing in other stocks at the time that also performed well. All right, so here's, my revised thoughts on why I have a more bullish thought on Square. The Bitcoin price jump, the institutional buying of Bitcoin that's going on now, not only with PayPal and Square, but also some of the big investment banks like JP Morgan, Fidelity, things like that. And the PayPal integration, which if you're not familiar, basically PayPal is going to allow you not only to invest in Bitcoin like you would on Square's Cash App, but then you can use your Bitcoin to make merchandise purchases at any one of the stores in the PayPal network. So for example, Home Depot, right? Home Depot does not have to do anything different in their world. PayPal will allow you to pay for your merchandise in the Bitcoin denomination. They will then translate that to American dollars, so Home Depot will receive American dollars. They will not have to do any math calculations. Yet if you hold your Bitcoin in PayPal, you will be able to actually use it if you need to. And this to me is a real game changer on the PayPal side, but I also think that it's good news for Square because it sort of raises what Bitcoin means to both of these companies. My second revised thought here, Cash App user demographic of poor and unbanked is likely more valuable than I originally projected, assuming you can offer them relevant services. So Cash App does have a wide demographic of the poor and unbanked. I was a little concerned about this because Cash App, one of the ways that they get people to sign up is they literally give away money and they do these contests and whatnot. That's fine to pad your numbers on users, but if these users that you're signing up don't have any money, it's hard to really make money off of them. So I was definitely bearish on that. However, I can see now that there is more opportunity to offer the poor and unbanked services such as they would find at a traditional bank. I think that's where they're going with Cash App. So I can kind of see it a little bit more clearly now. And I would say that there's opportunity because what we're seeing with the unbanked segment of the world is the fact that they have very little interest in a brick and mortar bank. So if you can provide them banking type services in a comfortable world that they can trust, then really the world can be your oyster in terms of even small fees. What I don't want to see is, companies like Square and PayPal offering predatory services, if you will. I just don't want them to get in a world of payday loans and high interest rate credit cards because I just don't think that that's the right way to make money. All right, next point, pretty obvious. Vaccine eliminates the long-term concern of the payment network. So, we're still going to lose thousands and thousands of small businesses. Square will have to build that back up, whatever they do lose from their network on this side. But the Cash App has the momentum to carry it until some of those small businesses come back. And quite frankly, guys, what I'm starting to realize with Square is Cash App probably should one day become Square's primary business. If all these other things hold true on the Cash App side, then we could see Square being more about Cash App than small business payment networks one day. Okay, so those are the reasons why I'm more bullish. We'll see the valuations on the next slide. I'm still saying hold if you own, potentially wait for a dip to buy. We'll talk about that in a second. But what we're really seeing here with Square from my perspective is the landscape is a little more promising than it was even 6 or 9 months ago, mostly because of the Cash App opportunity. And just for the record, I still prefer PayPal for their combination of Venmo and e-commerce, but I'm getting off of this train of being a Square bear, if you will, and saying like, okay, I see it now, and it looks like they could seriously rise up and become a major player, mostly behind what this Cash App could become. Okay, so despite being bullish, I'm still saying, hold if you own, wait for a dip, and that's mostly because of these valuations that are going on right now. Today we're, slightly above $200. And, this PE ratio, both the trailing and the forward, we're still a lot higher than we were even back in March, right? Now, Square hasn't been profitable for a long time, but you can see, you had a forward PE opportunity of 72 back in March. That even was a little bit lower back in September. But the way this market has run up, things have just gotten more expensive. And I can't imagine a world heading into winter that we don't have a stock market correction of some kind. That would be, if it was up to me, that would be when I would buy into Square. You can see all these other metrics that are escalating. Price to sales is now twice as much as it was back in September. And price to book obviously has doubled up as well. All right, on the TipRanks side of things, let's see what the top ranked analysts are saying about Square. We've got a bunch of fresh ratings here from under a month ago. Most of these guys, it looks like, are landing around this, low 200 mark, 210, 210, 203. You do have 300 in here. So generally speaking, I would say the TipRanks analysts are more bullish than I am. Because I'm suggesting that there's room for a pullback. We'll have to see. I mean, if this market keeps blazing through, then you could get to these levels. I would say that anything in the 250, 300 mark makes the assumption that PEs will remain high and the market will continue to chug past valuation metrics into this world of almost pure speculation. I would prefer to wait and get the growth opportunity that Square has with a price you can feel more comfortable with. But, I've missed the boat several times to this day. All right, taking a look at the EPS projections for Square. Last year they landed at 80 cents for the EPS. This year, most analysts are projecting to land at 77 cents, which is slightly lower than last year, but given the pandemic, I don't really think that that's such a bad thing. Next year, the growth at this point is projected in the $1.12 area. You do, however, have a high estimate of 175. So if you just figured at $1.12 at the end of next year, right? If you had a PE of 200, today's PE is 300. If it was 200, you'd be almost right at that $200 mark that we're seeing in Square's price today. And that would be, of course, paying a PE of 200. The 300 comes into play because this is the projected PE for the end of 2020. All right, so bottom line for me, I'm pulling back on being a Square bear. I'd say I'm a little bit of a fence sitter on today's valuation. It just doesn't make sense for a guy who's so bullish on PayPal, also a Visa stockholder. Those are my two biggest positions. I think that Square has fair opportunity. I will stick with Visa and PayPal as my preferred investments. But as always, I have exposure to Square, particularly through the ARK ETF that sits in my retirement account. But I think that this Cash App Venmo world has jumped ahead, probably 3 to 5 years just over this wacky pandemic. And now people are starting to understand that you don't need a brick and mortar bank, particularly if you don't have a ton of money. You can manage this whole thing from your phone. So that's why all of a sudden, when you throw in the Bitcoin boom that we're kind of in right now, there's just so much opportunity with these apps on Venmo and Cash App. I can't ignore it any longer. And so I'm taking back my bearish outlook, and I'm going to say Square is a great stock for growth in the long term. If you're holding 3 to 5 years, then you can probably buy it at any price that it trades at and feel good about it. If you want to get in cautiously and try to make the most money over 1 year or so, then I would probably, hope that you get a dip under 200. I've been saying that for 6 months and it hasn't happened yet. So just keep those things in mind. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this look at Square stock. Let me know what you think in the comments. We'll see you on the next video.